a few more review problems for you here. In this question, the first thing that we need to remember are the concepts of vertical angles, which are congruent, which means that they're equal to each other, and supplementary, linear pairs, such as a drawing like this one, where the two angles formed by the linear pairs add to 180. So these are two very important concepts that we need to keep in mind when we have to sort out angles such as in this problem. Going to vertical angles, these are the angles that form the bow tie shape. So for example, this angle 1 and this angle 3 should be equal to each other, and angle 4 should equal angle 2, because those are another pair of vertical angles. So let's use that information to get this problem done pretty quickly. If angle 2 is 115, so I'm going to write it down here, then I can immediately know that angle 4 must also be 115 degrees, so I can go ahead and fill that one in. And then to figure out angle 1 and angle 2, I remember the idea of supplementary angles, where if angle 1 and angle 2 together create 180 degrees, then 180 minus the 115 part that we already know should give me the measure of angle 1. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. 180 minus 115 is 65 degrees, and that is the measure of angle 1. So I can go ahead and put that here. I can also add it to my drawing so that I don't lose track of it. And as soon as I write it in there, it helps me see, wait a minute, angle 3 should be the same because it's a vertical angle with angle 1. So that is also 65 degrees. In the next problem, we keep in mind our available strategies here. If the angles are supplementary, which means that together the bottom of two angles form a straight line, which is 180 degrees, or vertical, which are the ones that form a bow tie, right? They have an angle bisector. In both cases, the angle is going to be equal to the other angle. In this case, we have angle ADC, which if I highlight it with my highlighter, that's ADC. That entire angle, it says it's 118 degrees. So that's this entire thing is 118 degrees. Now when I look at my definition for supplementary, the angle plus angle can equal to another given total, which is exactly what they gave us here. So I'm going to be using that strategy. 11x minus 7 plus 5x minus 3 should equal the 118. The easiest way for me to add these things together is 11x minus 7 plus 5x minus 3. Just go ahead and add downwards. 11 plus 5 is 16x's. Negative 7 and another negative 3 is negative 10. Those added together should equal 118. So now it's a pretty simple equation to solve. Just going to do plus 10 on both sides. 16x is equal to 128. The last step is to divide by the coefficient of x. And so x is equal to 8. Now remember, in geometry many times solving for x isn't the final answer. In this case, the final answer was to find angle ADB, which if we use a highlighter, that is this angle. So that angle is equal to 11x minus 7, but we already know what x is now, so I can substitute the x for an 8 and figure out the final answer of my problem, 81 degrees. This should be the final answer. So finding the x was just an intermediate step to then continue finding our final answer. The next problem, it says, given angle EHG is equal to 77 degrees, so let's use our highlighter to find that, EHG. Okay, so they're saying that the entire angle from one side to the other, the total, is 77 degrees. I don't see any vertical angles here, and they're not really telling me that this ray is a bisector, so I cannot assume that. So the only strategy I can use is the one that applies for supplementary or other given total, which in this case our other given total is 77. Angle plus angle equals the big angle. So we have, actually these are set up really nicely so that I can add them right here. 9x plus 13x is 22x. 3 minus 25 is negative 22. So I have 22x minus 22 is equal to my total of 77. Just like the previous problem, we now just solve it, keeping in mind that our final goal is to find the measure of FHG. So after we find x, we need to keep going. Here, this negative 22, I add 22 to both sides to start leaving the x by itself. And I have 22x is equal to 99. The last step in all these is to divide by the coefficient of x. And we find that x is equal to 4.5. Keep in mind that we're now going to be using this value of x to figure out what the measure of FHG is. So with our highlighter, let's find that angle, FHG. So that says it is 13x minus 25. But now that I know what x is, I can substitute that in. 13 times 4.5 minus 25. When I evaluate all of that, I get an angle of 33.5 degrees. So that is the measure, and that is our final answer. In this next problem, they are saying that KM is the angle bisector. Here's an important word, bisector. So I'm circling it, and I'm going to remind myself what it means. It means split into two equal halves. That's what bisector means. So angle JKL, which is this one that I'm highlighting here, was split in half by the bisector KM, which is this bisector. So if they give me the measure of the entire angle JKL, they're telling me right here that that is 79 degrees. They're asking me to find the measure of angle LKM, which is LKM right there, and also the measure of angle JKM, which is here, JKM. So they want me to figure out the degree opening of each one of the halves of this angle. Well, if the middle line here is the bisector, that means that 79 got split into 2. In other words, divided by 2. So that's what we need to do. 79 divided by 2 is equal to 39.5 degrees. And because they're two equal halves, that should be the same measure for each angle. So the key word in this problem was understanding that bisector means just cut in half. In other words, divide by 2. In this next problem, they again tell us that BD bisects angle ABC. Going back to our available strategies, we know that when we have an angle bisector, it's the same strategy as vertical angles. We're just going to have one angle equal to the other because bisector means two equal halves. So what we know with this strategy is that this half must be equal to this other half. And that's exactly the equation that we write. 3x plus 17 equals 7x minus 39. So I'm going to solve this equation. I'm going to make this my x side and this my no x side. And because this is the no x side, this 3x term should not be there, so I'm taking it away. And what I do on one side, I must do on the other. So I have 17 is equal to 7 minus 3, 4x minus 39. I have to go back and check, make sure everything's okay. This 17 does not have an x, so it's good on the no x side. This 4x does have an x, and it's on the x side. But this negative 39 is not on the correct side. That should be the no x side. So I need to take that one away. So I cancel that out with its inverse. Opposite sign. So now we have 4x is equal to 56. The last step is to divide by the coefficient of x. So I'm dividing both sides by 4. And I find out that x is equal to 14. Once again, this is not the end of our problem. That's when we were in Algebra 1. Or actually, never mind. In this problem, they just asked us to find the value of x. So sorry about that. X is equal to 14. Woohoo! We don't need to do anything else. Moving on to the next problem. Angle relationships. Here they're just basically checking for your vocabulary. So remember, vertical angles are formed by two intersecting lines that create that little bow tie shape. Here's that bow tie right there. And linear pairs are the ones that are sitting on a straight line, like this, or another example, that straight line could be slanted, for example, like that. That's another linear pair, this one and this one. So let's see, angle 1 and angle 3. I always mark them as I work. And they look like a bow tie shape to me, so those are vertical. Now we're talking about angles 1 and 2. So here's 1, and actually if I keep going on angle 2, that would be a straight line bottom, which is what we have for linear pairs, so that's what I'm going to call it. Lastly, we have angles 1 and 7. And these really do not have any connection or relation to each other, so I'm going to call them neither. This next problem, angle 1 and angle 2 are complementary. Now, I don't know if you remember when we did this in class, but the C for complementary should remind you that they add up to 90 degrees. Supplementary is 180, but complementary means that they add up to 90 degrees. So what that means is that angle 1 plus angle 2 should equal 90. And that's exactly the equation that you write. X minus 10 plus 2x plus 40 equals 90. I'm going to start solving here. I'm going to combine like terms. These two terms are on the same side of the wall, so I can go ahead and lump them together into a 3x. And then this negative 10 and this 40, they're on the same side of the equation, so I'm allowed to just group them together. Negative 10 plus 40, that's just a 30, is equal to 90. Subtract 30 from both sides. And you have 3x is equal to 60. The last step is to divide by the coefficient of x. And so x is equal to 20. In this case, they want us to find not only the value of x, but also to plug the value of x back in so that we can find the measure of the angles. Angle 1 is x minus 10, because they say right there. So I'm going to substitute the value of x for the 20. So it's 20 minus 10, which is just 10 degrees. And then the measure of angle 2, it says here that it's 2x plus 40. 2x plus 40 is the measure of angle 2, so substituting the value of x, which is 20, plus 40, I get 80 degrees. So these are all our final answers. In this next problem, we go back and review our available strategies. So we can either do angle plus angle is equal to 180 when they are supplementary, and angle is equal to angle when they are vertical angles. In this case, we have both linear pairs right here, and we also have vertical angles right here. So we're going to be using both strategies, but one at a time. Which one should I use first? Well, if I notice these two sets, these two angles here, are based on the variable of x. Whereas these vertical angles, one of them has x and the other one has y. So I want to work with a pair that has the same variable. So the solving equations is something that I'm familiar with the same variable. So I know that when I add these two angles together, I should get 180 degrees. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add the x's. And then I'm going to add the numbers. And that's going to be my equation. 6x plus 10x is just 26x. And then remember this 18, if you can't see it clear up there, it was negative. So negative 18 plus 3 is just a negative 15. Those added should equal 180. So we go ahead and solve. Plus 15 on both sides. So you should get 26x is equal to 195. The last step is always to divide the coefficient of x. And x is going to be equal to 7.5. So that value, we can put it here in a 7.5. And now we should erase these marks that we did on our figure, because now we need to focus on finding what y is. Well, if x is equal to 7.5, and if I knew what this angle is, I know that it's equal to 12y, so I can now use the vertical angle strategy. So since I know that this value here is 7.5, I don't want to be dealing with the variables anymore. I'm just going to go ahead and figure out what that is. So that's 16 times 7.5 minus 18, which is equal to a measure of 102 degrees. So now, since these two are vertical angles, they should be the same. This 102 should be the same as this 12y. So when I write that in math symbols, 102 is the same as equal to 12y. So I can easily figure out what y is now. Divide both sides by 12. And you have y is equal to 8.5. And that is the other measurement that they want here, the other value, I'm sorry. And you're done. The next problem, find the value of x. Again, we go back to our available strategies. Either the two angles get added together to produce 180 when they are supplementary, which are the ones that are sitting on a straight line and form a linear pair, or vertical angles that are the bow tie shape, those angles equal to angle. Here I can see that these two angles sitting together create a straight line from one side to the other. So the bottom is a straight line. So that means that these two angles together, added, produce 180. So our equation should be exactly that. 8x plus 9 plus 6x plus 17 is equal to 180 degrees. If this looks a little bit too complicated for you, remember you can always write down the 6x plus 17 underneath the 8x plus 9 and just add them downwards there. 8 plus 6 is 14x's. And 9 plus 17 is just a 26. So you can always write 14x plus 26 is equal to 180. If you were to combine the like terms here, the 8x plus the 6x, that's where the 14x comes from. And you combine the 9 plus the 17 to produce the 26. So either way, you get the same answer. Now we're going to solve, same way we've been solving all the other problems in this review. 14x is equal to 154. And then we divide by the coefficient of x. And x is equal to 11. So that is our final answer here. All they wanted was the value of x. In this next problem, at this point, this might seem very familiar to you. You can see that these are supplementary angles, the unknown one here and the 123, because their bottoms together form a 180 degree angle. Then we know that the strategy is just to do 180 minus the 123.5 should equal this missing angle right here. So 56.5 degrees is the answer that we write for angle YWZ, which is this one right here. The last problem in our review is reviewing the conditional, inverse, converse, and contrapositive. Remember that conditional is just the original statement written in if-then form. So all birds are blue. I could say, if it is a bird, then it is blue. So it's basically just adding the if right here and the then in the breakpoint of the statement. The inverse, I'm sorry, I forgot to write the symbolic. So if we say it is a bird, let's call that A, and it is blue, let's call that B. So symbolically we can say that if A, then B. For the inverse, I'll actually write the symbolic first. The inverse means that you are negating what A and B was. So not A leads to not B. So I could say, if it is not a bird, then it is not blue. Notice that I have not changed order. I'm first mentioning the birds in both cases, then I'm mentioning the color in both cases. But when we're doing the converse, that's when we now change order. And to help you remember, the C of converse, change, and the O, order. So change order. So instead of mentioning birds first, I'm now going to be mentioning color first. If it is blue, then it is a bird. The symbolic version of that would be, now we go from B to A. The contrapositive is where we both negate and change order. So, if it is not blue, then it is not a bird. So, we would say not B leads to not A.